For physiotherapists, tendinopathy is a crucial condition to be able to effectively assess and manage in musculoskeletal practice. So here are my top tips for managing tendinopathy. Let's dive in. Hey guys, Khalid here. Welcome back to Clinical Physio. So whether it's an Achilles tendinopathy, a patellar tendinopathy, a rotator cuff tendinopathy, these are different conditions that physiotherapists are perfectly placed to help our patients. But what do we actually need to do? Let's start with my first top tip, deload to reload. So a way you can explain this to patients, and I find super useful, is to explain that tendons are a little bit like humans. If we're at work and our boss gives us loads to do, far too much that we can cope with, we get grumpy, we get annoyed, we get really tired, and we find that we struggle with work. Tendons are the same. If we overwork them, overload them, overuse them in a short space of time, they develop a tendinopathy. So what do we need to do? Well, if we were at work as humans, what we might ask from our boss is, can I have a little bit of time where I don't quite have to do as much? And then maybe I'll be able to get back on the ladder and I'll go in the right direction? Tendons are the same. So we deload, reduce the amount that those tendons are doing before we can reload. Now, crucially, this doesn't mean a complete rest, a complete stop from activity. What we can do here is establish what the patient can and cannot tolerate and dive into these specifics to create a plan with them. So, for example, a runner with Achilles tendinopathy may be able to run 3 kilometers before their pain onsets. That's their too much level, that's their overload. So what we can do is reduce that a little bit towards 1.5K. We deload them to make sure that they're running at a level which is manageable, and then over time we gradually build it back up. And we can apply this to other tendinopathies as well. Imagine you're looking at a patient who goes to the gym, they've got a rotator cuff tendinopathy, they're finding that they can shoulder press about 8 kilos before it gets too sore. Well, that's fine. Maybe we just need to drop it down to 5 kilos, get them to work in a position that they're happy with, get that tendon to deload, and then as things get a little bit more comfortable, as the tendon gets less grumpy, we can reload and increase back to 8, and therefore beyond 8 to 10, 12, etc., etc. So, deload to reload. Explain it to patients so that they understand that sometimes working at a lower level helps them to get back to the higher level. So tip number 2, pain education. Patients ask this all the time. How much pain should I expect? How much pain should I allow during my exercises? Should it be painful? Should it be not painful? Well, in order to tackle this, we've got a brilliant diagram from Sprague et al. 2021. So this diagram is relatively self-explanatory but super useful. You can see how it's split between 0 and 10, and here we're asking the patient to rate their pain during their exercise. There's a safe zone between 0 and 2, there's an acceptable zone between 2 and 5, and a high-risk zone between 5 and 10, where if your patient rates their pain between 0 and 10, which zone do they think that their pain is in when they're doing an exercise? You can see the rules that Sprague et al. Suggest below. The pain is allowed to reach number 5 during the activity. The pain after completion of the activity is allowed to reach number 5. The pain the morning after should not exceed number 5. And that pain and stiffness are not allowed to increase week to week. So what this perhaps tells us is that patients can work within an acceptable level of pain whilst they're doing their exercises. Do they have to go to 5? No, absolutely not. They can work at a level which is a bit lower than that. But the idea being is that they aren't supposed to exceed these levels and therefore not overload that tendon during their exercises. I find this super important to explain to patients because if we're leaving them for a couple of weeks to get on with their exercises, they need to know where they stand. They need to know what they should be doing during their exercises. So give them the control, give them the explanation so they can put it into practice. Top tip number 3, setting expectations. This is crucial for patients with tendinopathy, and sometimes a phrase that I use in practice is months, not weeks. So when I'm describing to patients how long it might take for them to get back to full function, I use a month's number, like 3 months, rather than a week's number, like 12 weeks. Weeks just are shorter in someone's mind, rather than months, which seem longer. And you can see it in people's faces when you say 3 months, they say, wow, that's a long period of time. And this is crucial because it's important that patients understand that tendinopathy is not a quick fix. It's something that takes time, that takes dedication within exercises, and will naturally have ups and downs as they go. It won't be a straight line. So here are some stats for you in terms of patellar tendinopathy. Cook et al. Found that more than 1/3 of athletes presenting for treatment with patellar tendinopathy were unable to return to sport within 6 months. Barr and Barr investigated long-term outcomes after eccentric training to manage patellar tendinopathy and were determined that only 46% of athletes had returned to full training and were pain-free until 12 months. So those are just a couple of quick stats, but effectively the key thing here is that we need to help patients to buy into the process. They need to understand for their own expectations. This is a marathon, not a sprint. This is definitely not a quick fix. The reason being is that it helps them to understand when there are ups and downs. It helps them to remember that it's okay if they have a bad day or a bad week or things don't always go up in a straight line. But of course, as physiotherapists, we're there to help them along the journey. We're there to hold their hand. We're there to help them with every step. And so those are some of my top 3 tips for tendinopathy. If you've enjoyed this video, please support us by smashing that like button. Subscribe to the channel for all our best updates. Remember, we've got loads of resources on our Instagram account @ClinicalPhysio, and our website clinicalphysio.com has got so many brilliant resources for physiotherapists to improve your skills. My name's Khalid. Thank you so much for watching. See you soon here on Clinical Physio.